Hello, everybody. I'm Dakota Coddington. I'm here with Tyler Overbey, and this is Polite Political Discourse. So, too often, people spend a lot of time arguing and debating and straight out fighting over some of these political topics that, that everyone's talking about. And our goal, our dream for this podcast would be just to have a polite conversation, intellectual conversation, just talking about these things that happen in our world. So I'm here with Tyler, and
Hello.
Yeah, let's get going. So our first topic, we're talking about the recent mass shootings in the Texas church and the Vegas shooting. So Tyler, what happened?
All right. So basically, at the time of us recording this podcast, it is the Monday after the Sunday, immediately following the Sunday of the Texas massacre. Basically, there was another shooting at a church in Texas, and they don't know the gunman yet, and they don't know why. There's no motive. But immediately this harkens back to the beginning of last month, which is when we were originally planning this discourse. It was over the Vegas shooting, in which an older man, succeeded in smuggling many rifles, dozens of rifles, into a hotel room in the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas, and gunned down hundreds of people, and injured and killed many. And immediately, where I want to start off with this is what I was hurt by, when I kind of anticipated. There was a lot of, especially on the Democratic liberal side of the media, there was a lot of immediate outcry towards, like, all right, we need to change gun laws. This is a perfect example of, like, guns kill people, or, like, they're freaking out trying to make a lot of ridiculous, like, advertisements saying, like, if we had this, if we had that, this is why we need that. And it pisses off people. Like, a lot of people, you'll hear,
Yep.
Anybody that's listening to this will probably agree that, like, it's annoying when they're like, this shooting happens, it's because of the guns, we need to get rid of all the guns. Or this shooting, another massacre happens left and right. Sandy Hook happens, the Texas massacre is it happened. Orlando, that was just a couple years ago.
Yep.
They'll just keep happening, and then people will say, the radicals will say, like, get rid of the guns. And it's like, here's where I stand on the issue, and I think, this is a very liberal stance, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I just think that there needs to be more background checks, and there needs to be more efficient, laws and rules in terms of, like, acquiring a gun, because there are, and I know it doesn't necessarily have to be federal. I'm just saying on the state level they should change it, because there's certain states, and I'm not going to name particular ones, but you can look it up. There are states where you can literally just go into a Walmart and basically get a gun. Even though it might take a little bit, you can still get one. All you have to do is be of a certain age and not have, a certain record. And, a lot of life events can make a lot of people sick or ill, or to a point where, I'm not saying that it would happen a lot, but, older adults things could happen, something. They could lose their wife to cancer, they could lose their brother, they could lose their family, there could be an accident, they could go into debt, they could, have an affair, or they find out, like, things happen. That's life.
Yeah.
And if somebody snaps, here's the thing where a lot of people say there's nothing you can do to prevent gun violence at all. Like, there's a lot to say about anger. And if you can diffuse it with a little bit more, like, time and background checks. Because if a guy can just walk in and get a gun and walk back out, he's a lot more likely to shoot somebody than if he walks in, he signs the paperwork, and they're like, all right, we'll get back to you in a couple of days or a week. And then he'll come back in, and then they'll say, oh, okay. And he calms down after a couple of days. Like, I'm not saying that that's what a lot of people, the people that are going to have shootings are necessarily going to do every time. Like, but it could happen. I could, if I was older, I could, who knows? Like, if I was really angry at somebody, I could be like, I want a gun for protection, and then who knows what would happen. Like, I'm not saying, it could happen to anybody.
Yeah, and there are laws, kind of like what you described, where, well, at least in certain states, I know California for sure, if you want to purchase a gun, you can go into the store and you can buy it, but you cannot physically take it home until 10 days after. That's like a little cool down period. And I think policies like that are great because
I agree.
It gives people some time to chill out. And if they're not chilled out by then, they're not going to chill out for who knows how long. But like it turns like first minute debates into less of like, hey, I'm so angry I killed someone right now, into like it just gives them time to think, really. And so yeah, there's gun violence all the time though, and we can see that. We can see like people dying, and beyond what we already have, what can we do? I don't think the solution is to just take away all the guns, obviously, because it's the Second Amendment saying, hey, we get our guns. But you're right, like it's a little too easy. I don't know, maybe. The thing is, I don't know. None of us really know the perfect solution, right? Because obviously, none of us are perfect, and everyone's going to claim they have the perfect solution. Everyone's going to claim that they have this awesome idea, and some ideas are actually really awesome, but there's no one perfect solution to governing, especially when it comes to guns, because in reality, if you take away everyone's guns, then people are still going to get them illegally. But at the same time, if you don't have any restrictions at all, people just are walking around with RPGs and whatnot. Not saying that actually would happen, but like, so it's just kind of that mentality of like, hey, we need to screen these people, which honestly, that's what I think is the best solution, is exactly what you said, like doing the background checks, thorough background checks, spending more time making sure that these people don't get these guns, and like that they can't just walk wherever they want with them. I'm a big advocate for having guns and like concealed carry. Like people I know concealed carry. Not at school, obviously. No one at school has guns. But yeah, it's like I have to agree with you here. Like, just I don't know.
Well, to further the conversation to where we might disagree, I have a transcript from a comedy show that was on Netflix, and I've been meaning to quote it because I think it perfectly sums up a lot of this. There was a comedy show called Bear, and it's by Jim Jeffries, the comedian, stand-up comedian. So it's inappropriate, but at parts that's why I'm gonna read out or not read any of the bad stuff. But this is what the quote I wanted to read. He says, "All I'm saying is, this is my personal belief on the opinion. My opinion is, I don't like guns, all right? I'm going to say some things are just facts, right? In Australia, we had guns, right? Right up until 1996. In 1996, Australia had the biggest massacre on Earth. It still hasn't been beaten. And now, after that, they banned the guns. Now, in the 10 years before Port Arthur, there was 10 massacres. Since the gun ban in 1996, there hasn't been a single massacre since. I don't know how or why this happened. Maybe it was a coincidence, right? Now, please understand that I understand Australia and America are two vastly different cultures with different people, right? I get it. In Australia, we had the biggest massacre on Earth, and the Australian government went, that's it, no more guns. And we all went, yeah, all right, then that seems pretty fair. In America, you have the Sandy Hook massacre, and tiny children died, and the government went, maybe we'll get rid of the big guns? And 50% of you went, don't take my guns! See, here's where it gets confusing. Anyway, I can keep going with the quote, but basically to summarize it, like, they actually did something to try it as an experiment, see what would happen if nobody had weapons, and it works. It's possible. Like, in England, they outlaw guns, and yes, there's more stab murders or whatever you want to call it. I mean, that's not the right terminology, but murder by knife, but the massacres have gone down because the guns are gone. But I understand that this is where I also get kind of pro-gun in the sense where it's like, you're not going to get rid of the people. Like, people aren't going to... The American people aren't going to get rid of all of the guns.
Yeah.
And they're not going to want to because it's a part of, like, that's honestly such a cultural, like, facet of American society is honestly the fact that everybody loves, like, or not everybody loves guns, but there's so many people that, even though they might not admit it, they're like the silent majority or whatever, but I can guarantee you that over like 60% of at least like certain adults in certain areas of any part of the state, of any state in the country, there's going to be a lot of people that are like either, NRA members, not necessarily, but or just pro, advocates for it because they're in gun clubs. They have so many of those, many unbelievable. You name it in all the different states. There's rifles associations and gun committees and there's magazines and TV shows and websites and dedicated to just all this different gun porn, for lack of a different word. Like, not to be a little bit out there, but it's you got to get real in this conversation where it's like it's just kind of an obsession with certain people, and that's why it's never going to leave. And I understand that, but the thing is that it doesn't necessarily those people, just because they'd have to wait a little bit longer doesn't mean they're not going to get those guns.
True.
That's why I'm saying for my main point with this sort of thing is it's like the background checks, like, and all of the other routines that we're trying to the Democrats or the liberals, that they say on Fox News that they're saying like are trying to advocate for. It's the devil. It's just these are just precautions, and if anyone that really deserves to have a gun would be more than okay with following these precautions, and they'd still get what they want. But the thing is that, and a lot of people I hear in my classes, even right next to me, anywhere, all across campus, they'll say like, "Oh well, it's not like that. These rules are gonna do anything about the massacres. Like people, like they're still gonna, people are still gonna get their hands on the guns." But it's like, there's no reason not to put in these measures. That's like what they don't understand. They're like, oh well, there's no reason for it. Let's not do it at all. It's like you put it in. What's it gonna affect you?
It'll save at least one life. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, that's what. Well, that like,
it'll cut back some of that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it's just safer precautions.
Yeah.
And at least that's something. They say there's nothing you can do to prevent it. It's like, well, you can at least try. And it really is an argument to go into like the question of like people with mental illnesses, should they be able to purchase weapons?
Yeah.
And I'm someone that has mental issues with, because I have generalized anxiety disorder, and I could understand why certain people with mental disorders probably wouldn't be right for them to have guns, because who knows what could happen to them. I'm not saying like everyone in general. I'm saying there's certain people with certain disorders that probably shouldn't, because you never know. And I hate to be the one to say that like, oh, not all people should be denied like a certain right, unalienable right of the Constitution, but it's like, I'm just saying that's why there's more background checks, more reviews, more check-ins. This is what I'm saying. Like, background checks, not necessarily like, I'm saying more in-depth investigation on a person-to-person basis. That way, like, you can decide based on a person's mental health, mental stability, background, history, from a person-to-person standpoint, if they're eligible to have a gun. Because then they can say there's certain people with certain illnesses, like I'm talking about, that will not qualify, and they'll say, oh yeah, they probably shouldn't have a gun. You know what I'm saying? And like, I get it that like people can get shit on the black market. Sorry for my language. People can get stuff on the black market, guns, weapons, whatever you want. But there's also just walking through the front door at this current moment with these current laws, like in Alabama or Georgia, anywhere. In places where I love to go and visit and have family, it's like, you just got to be careful, because I worry about the children that grow up there, because who knows? You got to be safe and careful.
My question would be, like, what would be your basis? Because, like, there's a lot of people in America that won't have a record at all with, like, maybe a speeding ticket or something, but like there's a lot of people in our country that don't have any criminal record, don't have any of that. So like what would you recommend as that process of screening then?
Well, that's the tough question that I haven't really been able to really nail down, how to approach, because that is a good point.
But like how far? Really?
But I think, the argument that I think stands true that I can, or that something we can actively do is at least start with that's where I'm talking about in terms of being able to have more coverage and more safety and more precautions. That there's so many of them in the it's undocumented. Why not start now? You know what I mean? I'm not saying that it'll solve the problem and there won't be undocumented guns, but at least we can have like in the next decade, that'll have a ripple effect of saying, oh, here's at least like a billion different guns to all these millions of different people, and they're under X, Y, these states. You can figure out the majority of where all the people have the most amount of guns and why and where. You can track it. That's maybe it'll be further down the line, but I'm just being blunt with you because I don't know a current fix.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people say like, oh well, the argument's dead. But like I'm saying, there's still something to say about like in the future that's going to be a bigger effect, and at least that'll prevent ease of access. That's what I'm saying. Preventing ease of access. That's where the big argument lies, just for the future.
Yeah.
Because you can get it off the street, but you can't do anything about that federally. You know what I mean? That's on a state and local level, and that's a whole nother argument. You know what I mean? And even though people will argue that makes it a moot point, it's not. It still is. There's certain efforts that you can make. Trying to see if someone qualifies.
Yep.
That should be a factor.
The thing is, like, no matter what you do, it's, at least here in our American society, in our country, in just as a population of humans, this kind of stuff is still going to happen. Like, people are always going to get angry. People are always going to kill each other. Like, earlier you said, like, they don't have nearly as many gun violence in England, but they do have, like, stabbings and whatnot. Like, it's, as humans, we get angry. I'm not saying it's right to kill people, but I'm just saying, like, that's what some people will do. They'll snap, they'll break. And, yeah, I can see what you're saying, though. Because, like, it's whether we... short-term fix, long-term fix, essentially. Like, we could just take away all the guns, which... first of all, would never happen in America. Like,
exactly, and that's like the big thing that I can't even stress enough as someone that is so democratic and all that, whatever. Like, there's so many flaws because, like I said, there's like a big majority of those people that think that we can get rid of them. Like, we will figure out a way. Like, it's like no, there's not. It's not, and it's not gonna happen, and you shouldn't even try. And I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that you got to be careful about the people that are currently still trying to, because you look on the street and down the street and there could be some crazy person that is going to still to this day try to get a gun.
Well, and it's like a part of that is like there's even if we take away all the guns, there still will be ways like we had the FDA guy come in and talk about drugs, and he spent not
ED or
the anti-drug guy.
Yeah, I forgot.
I can't believe, why? Either way.
Yeah. DEA,
Drug Enforcement Agency. That's what it is. I don't know what the FDA is. But
FDA, federal. I don't know.
Either way, I thought it was Federal Drug Agency.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, no, it's Food and Drug. The FDA
That's the Food and Drug
Administration.
Yeah, the Food and Drug Act.
Here, I have a question for you, because we were talking about this when we first came up with this idea.
Yeah.
The Las Vegas shooting. People immediately started arguing on that level, on that during that event. The biggest argument that I was hearing was like, should they do it more like to restrict like things that like security, like at hotels and concerts and all that stuff, or should like how Anya and Jake did like the double column.
Yeah.
About, and I'm trying to plug it a little bit, but I forgot what it was called. But it was a gun control opinion 2 op-ed column article.
Yeah.
Where she was arguing for, we need to have tougher regulations and stricter enforcement, and then Jake was saying, there's nothing you can do about it, you just leave it as it is because blah blah blah. Both of them have their own respected opinions, and that's perfectly fine. But there's something to be said, like there were some people saying like, on concert venues, like tougher restrictions on, like, what do you think they should do to restrict it? I don't think that there's anything that they can really do.
I mean, there's so many events, there's so many things that happen all over the place. I mean, it's a free country, people are allowed to go, like, have an event, like, we have school events, we have, like, rock concerts in the park, we have all that kind of stuff, and I don't think it's physically possible to, like, screen everything. Like, I just think that's the nature of having a country where we can do, not whatever we want, obviously, but, so...
I mean, it's just kind of something that, I don't know, there's so much outcry about
Yeah.
trying to fix it and trying to stop it, but with that, there's really nothing that you can stop or do.
There's not much you can. Yeah, like you can try to like. I mean, a big thing is the culture. Like we have to, as a society, not be like paranoid, but kind of be looking out for people who are looking hurt, people who are looking like they want to kill somebody, people who like, if we as a society could forget gun control, like if we as a society could encourage others that seem to be going through these hard times, like I can guarantee a lot less murder and killing would happen. But then again, people are people going to do what people are going to do, and it's not going to work that way. But
I agree, and I am so glad that you said that, because it's such a great point, because it's something that you can't stress enough. Like, there's regulations, you gotta have an effort that you tried, but there's nothing you can ultimately do. That's what to answer the overarching question is.
There is no ultimate solution.
That's why I'm saying, that's why the argument for the regulations is that you're at least putting an effort on something, and it could, and I think long term the long term effects is profitable. And then in terms of just concerts or anywhere performances, you need tough security, and that is good to increase it, and I hope people do, at big concerts, at least increase personnel, make sure that there's people there in case of an emergency.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's it. You can't do anything else. And I know that there's probably a lot of, and I probably should have researched some articles of people out there thinking of what they were doing, but I think all of it's void, because you really can't do anything about it either.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point where you don't want to, I also think democratically, you don't want to invade anyone's privacy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How far can you go in searching through people's stuff? They were making all these regulations about he got through all the metal detectors because he had the stuff in his, in golf bags, and this might be a negative opinion. People might look down on me saying this, but you can put laws in to toughen up security, but I just worry that that's just gonna start infringing on people's rights, because people are entitled to, and by the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, to privacy, and being able to have something of their own, that they can keep to themselves. And I worry that the laws that people are thinking of implementing could infringe upon them.
Yeah.
And that's honestly a pretty conservative thing of me to say.
Yeah, well that's the thing, is there's a balance. People go freedom of privacy, freedom, and then there's freedom to own guns, right? You gotta find the balance of where people don't have guns and they're just running willy-nilly, but at the same time they're not being forced, because if you had a database of everyone who owned guns, that, I mean, that's good for the sake of enforcement, but at the same time it's just okay, you have a giant list of everyone where just kind of that kind of thing. I don't know. Sorry, I just totally derped. We will edit this out. But you have a giant list of people who information about, which, I mean, the government does that all the time, but I don't think it's right to do that kind of thing. No. Just know that whole point. But I don't even know what I'm saying there.
In conclusion,
but yeah, we've touched a lot on the subject, talked about a bunch of things like gun control.
I'm glad. I think it went very good. How about you?
I think it went well. But we should probably say something to conclude.
I don't know. We probably should have planned this.
Yeah, the ending. All right. Here's what we're going to do.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for... I appreciate if you made it this far. I'm so sorry that we're lovable idiots and we didn't plan the ending. But if you appreciated this video as much as we appreciated making it, tune in for the next time, because I'm sure we'll make another episode and talk more. Thank you very much.
Adios, amigos.
Since I agree.
Where they're not being, like, monitored, like, 24/7. So wherever you see someone with a gun, you're like, oh, I know that, and they know everything about someone with guns, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, finding that balance between having privacy and having guns, you know?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense. That kind of gives me a little bit of a different perspective, you know?
Yeah. So, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for joining us in this.
Listening to our long conversation.
Yeah, this went a little longer than we thought, but
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I hope you enjoyed it at home or at school or wherever you're listening to this.
Please, if you enjoyed it, listen to the next one, because I'm sure we'll make another one, right?
Yep. All right, we are signing out. I'm Dakota Coddington again.
And I'm Tyler Overbey.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.